you speak often about love and the power of love, particularly Black love. Um, what is that? What's so transformative about that as an idea for you?
I mean, part of it is just being true to myself. It's you and I, we know that we are who we are because somebody loved us. See, so no set of circumstances, even if America goes fascist, that it's not going to take that love away from me.
Hello and welcome to The New Conversation. I'm Dwight McBride, president of the New School. We're so grateful to have you join us for this series where I converse with thinkers and creators, doers about their work, their life experience, and their perspectives on some of the most important issues of our time. Today's guest is Dr. Cornel West, one of the most well-known and influential scholars, writers, and activists of our time. He's currently the Dietrich Bonhoeffer Professor of Philosophy and Christian Practice at Union Theological Seminary, and the author of more than 20 books on race, politics, social justice, and Black history. He's also, this semester, a presidential visiting scholar here at the New School and will be giving a public lecture on March 24th, 2022, that I am very excited to share with you here on this channel very soon. Cornel, thank you so much for being here with me today, my brother.
Brother, you don't know how much joy it brings me just to set eyes on you and to know you, the captain of the ship there at that magnificent, unique, and singular institution, the New School, the New School.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate that too. And I just want to jump right in with that in mind to say, I mean, one, thank you for being with the New School and coming to be a presidential visiting scholar this semester. And bringing all that you bring to our academic community here. Let's start at the beginning. When did you first know that you were going to be a philosopher and an activist? Did you always know that this was the path that you were on, or was there ever something else, Cornel, that you considered earlier in your life?
Well, I thought I was going to be the next Willie Mays because I was a hell of a baseball player. So my life was a colossal failure in that sense. Then I was going to be the next James Brown. I'm not too far away from that. I'll tell you that right now. But so that early on, just growing up on the chocolate side of town in Sacto, it was sports and it was entertainment that really seized my imagination. I always loved to read and what have you, but I never really thought of being an intellectual. And I ended up just being a philosopher because I liked, the texts that I read that were in philosophy, but I've never considered myself first and foremost a philosopher. I really considered myself first and foremost an intellectual, a thinker. So I read as much poetry as philosophy. I listen to much more music in some ways than even, I read text more than music, but music means more to me than most texts. You know what I mean? I love Supreme means more to me than Spinoza's ethics. Now, I love Spinoza. He's a giant. He's one of the great intellectual explosions of early modernity. But Love Supreme speaks to me in ways that his ethics do not. So it's always been much more integral and holistic in my orientation for the life of the mind rather than through disciplines. I've never really been a disciplinary kind of thinker.
I know that to be true. The first class I ever took with you, I have told this story many times at Princeton when I was an undergrad. I spent the first 2 weeks writing down the words and references that I did not know. And then I went to the library. I try to remind young people that, we had those back then before we could, get on. Went to the library and looked them up. And that was a part of my education, right? And wanting to know, wanting to be in that conversation, wanting to be in that dialogue, finding, well, what is this existentialism? Let me go find it, who is this Spinoza, right? Let me go and find out what he had to say. It brings me to the next point I want to raise with you, and that is you speak a lot, because when you gloss that history, which you just eloquently, that history rooted in white supremacy, right? When you gloss that history as you do so beautifully, you speak often about love and the power of love, particularly Black love. Um, what is that? What's so transformative about that as an idea for you?
Well, it's a wonderful question, brother. I mean, part of it is just being true to myself. You know, it's you and I. We know that we are who we are because somebody loved us. I've met your magnificent parents. You know, there's no brother Dwight without mom and dad, without the church and so forth. And whatever limitations the church has, whatever limitations mom and dad had, they gave us enough love to sustain ourselves so the gas in our state and our tank seems to be forever full. And so I got to be true to that. See, so no set of circumstances, even if America goes fascist, that it's not going to take that love away from me. It's not going to take those memories away from me. It's not going to take me wanting to choose to stay on the love train, even in jail or even in some internment camp or whatever it is, because that's the choice one makes to be that kind of human being before the worms get your body.
I mean, what you say, and I've gone back in preparation for really to read some of Dr. King's early words as well. It's a profound thing to ask people who have been so despitefully used and I'll just take American history for a moment,
right.
This on a global scale,
That's right.
Who have been so despitefully used, and to say love your enemies. That's a love that it's deep, it has profundity, it is miraculous in some ways, right?
It is.
But it is a love that Black people have participated in, and candidly to the betterment of this country, right?
Absolutely.
But what keeps that go? What sustains that? I mean, what sustains that?
Yeah. Well, that's a tough question because we might be living at a moment where that great tradition is itself becoming more weak and feeble and thin and running out. That's part and parcel of the imperial meltdown that we're wrestling with that goes hand in hand with the spiritual breakdown. So that we see, the primacy of Thrasymachus over Socrates, of might makes right, rather than using persuasion and intellectual integrity at the center of who one is. Same would be true in terms of Jesus. I don't think you can separate Black identity from the genius of Hebrew scripture, the spreading of Hesed, the steadfast love to the orphan and widow and motherless and fatherless, and then connecting to a Palestinian Jew named Jesus, that the role of the stories that flow, and they're subject to all kind of interpretations. You got the Klan, that's a certain interpretation of Christianity.
Yep.
You got Dorothy Day.
Yeah.
On the vanilla side of town, Catholic, but got a heart of gold and in solidarity with oppressed people of whatever color. But that tradition has played such an important role in shaping the tone and temperament and the lens through which so many Black people view the world. They just took it seriously. And I'm thinking very much of my own case because, you see, Shiloh Baptist Church for me, it's not some kind of anachronistic institution that happens to sit in the hood at the moment. It's part of the greatest traditions of the modern world in which a Black people have been able to look overwhelming hatred and trauma, overwhelming terror in the face, and still teach the world so much about how to love.
You left Harvard, which you referenced a little earlier, last year, and you posted your resignation letter quite publicly, saying that you felt that Harvard Divinity School, and I think the quote was, in a state of decline and decay. A few months before that, you also had written an op-ed in the Washington Post about Howard University, speaking out about the dissolution of their classics department. You wrote in that piece, and again, I'm going to quote here, This is the result of a massive failure across the nation's schooling, which is now nothing more than the acquisition of skills, the acquisition of labels, and the acquisition of jargon. Schooling is not education. So tell me, what do you think is happening in higher ed right now, in a sector that you and I have both spent our lives in? What do you think's happening? What does that future look like? And are there places and practices, to go back to this theme of hope, that give you hope about the future of our sector and this honorable, to my mind, and almost sacred undertaking?
Absolutely. And I think it is honorable and sacred as a calling. But if they don't have a sense of calling, then the moral and spiritual dimensions that ought to go into the shaping of who they are become secondary and tertiary. Yeah. And therefore, the universities so easily become colonized by too much of the greed, too much of the contempt that's in the larger society. And I think universities and colleges, going back to Plato's Academy, have always, at their best, been countervailing forces against the rule of greed and hatred and raw power. And so, but we know that's the ways of the world. That's the ways of the world is organized greed and institutionalized hatred and routinized contempt and so forth, institutionally and individually. But there's got to be spaces where people come together and say, let's think critically about these things.
Right.
Let's be in conversation with the greatest voices of the past. And by great, what we mean is those people who are willing to lay bare ways of looking at the world that had been overlooked. Yep. The broadening of what we see and feel, and the broadening of our courage to act. So look, we are part of a long-going, long-standing conversation tradition in the sciences, the arts, and other kinds of conversation. I wouldn't say discipline, but other kinds of conversations, you know. And, you know, for me, you know, as long as the freedom of a Nietzsche is let loose in the world, you know, I don't agree with most of what Nietzsche has to say, but I don't live without him. He's an intimate, he's not a soul companion. He's not like Chekhov or Coltrane. But he's an intimate conversational partner. He's an intimate interlocutor. Why? Because he's got a level of intellectual integrity and creativity that's indispensable for any serious thinking. And I just use him as an example of 19th century Europe. We could find, you know, a variety of different figures in other traditions, other civilizations. Even.
There's so much that I want to ask. But one of the things about you that many people don't know, and I hope it comes through even in this dialogue and this conversation, is that you are deeply committed to teaching and to mentoring.
That I can't really be true to my calling without it. And the calling has to do with the joys of being part of conversations across generations. So my own limitations can be laid bare. And to have new voices, you know, when you and I there at Princeton, we having conversation. You look at that world through a set of lenses that I know not of because you're a younger brother. You know what I mean? You got different kind of musical heroes sometimes, and literary heroes sometimes. And if we reading, we could read a Dickens, or we could read a Jane Austen, or we could read a Ellison or Toni Morrison. You got your own take on it. I said, oh, dang, Dwight, I haven't really thought about that. So that there's a joy in that kind of Socratic exchange. But the other side of it is that I was mentored in such a magnificent way by this Martin Kielsons and Preston Williams and John Rawls and Richard Rorty's and Sheldon Wolins and Hilary Putnams and Stanley Cavell's. And, I can go on and on and on. In the Academy, Stanley Aronowitz, we just lost. But it was interesting, you know, I just a little while ago, I was asked to give the keynote at the 57th anniversary of the assassination of our dear brother Malcolm X, right in the same spot where he was shot, in Audubon Room, 165th and Broadway. Mm. And I showed up. I didn't know what to expect. You know, I showed up, and the woman who introduces me says, I was Professor West's student at Harvard. She's now the director.
Wow.
And there was another brother that really blew my mind. He made a beeline to me with tears in his eyes, and he says, Brother West, I've been looking forward to this moment for the last 7 years. He said, I was in jail for 33 years, and you wrote a letter to my board of parole, and the chairman of the board denied that I had any relation to you, thought the letter was false, and they found out it was true, that they let me out. And I've been out for 7 years. I hugged the brother, his wife was there, and so forth. I said, well, my letter wasn't that causal. It was more correlation than a causation. Let's just be honest about it. But he said, but if you knew the brothers in the prisons, because they know I've taught in prisons for almost 40 years, but the brothers in prison are reading. When I was on death row, they were reading your work. And so when you say, wow, isn't that somehow God can use a cracked vessel like me to have that kind of, beautiful touching of souls as teacher, as mentor, and as someone who is open to being taught by those that you supposedly mentor.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. During my time at Princeton, and speaking of teaching and mentoring, you, Toni Morrison.
Oh, Toni loved you. Toni loved you. And love your mind, your heart, your soul. And
she, I miss her still. I miss her still.
Same here, though, man. Same here.
But all of you were so intellectually and personally formative for me during those years. And I've reflected often on the incredible turning point that those heady times represented in my own life and evolution. I am on the path I'm on today because of that time. There's no question in my mind about that. I also know that you and Toni Morrison were great friends and colleagues during those years and beyond. And I have a strong sense of what having you as an interlocutor meant to Toni and her work. How do you reflect on Toni's impact on you?
On me as a human being.
You and your work, but on you.
Yeah, I don't have words though, man. I really don't. Toni had so much soulfulness. She had a truthfulness. She had a mirthfulness. She had an impeccable style.
Yes.
As a person of class, parents come out of gut bucket Jim Crow, both Alabama and Georgia, made their way to Lorain, Ohio. And she was so committed to the life of the mind. I don't think people can read Source of Self-Regard now to get a little sense of the scope and depth of her reading. But as both editor at Random House and as great novelist that she is, she stands alongside Melville and Faulkner and Thomas Pynchon and Saul Bellow. Some of the greatest novelists of the American Empire, way up, in that upper ether of the pantheon. And yet she just so down home, just the salt of the earth, and always concerned about our people doing, how their families doing, and so forth. That's just a rare thing in life, man. That's just a gift of grace, man. It's just the only language that I can come up with to account for being able to live at a time that she did. Remember, I had come back to New York from Yale after I got arrested at Yale for fighting for a clerical union for women and against apartheid. When they denied me my sabbatical, I was supposed to teach University of Paris. So I had to go to Paris and New Haven for a whole semester, teaching both places. I said, no, this is too much. So I went back to New York, and I said, I'll be at Union Seminary for life. And then Toni calls. Would you like to form an intellectual neighborhood with me? Ruth Simmons says we can do it. And it was like the voice of God. I hate to sound idolatrous like this, but it was like the voice of God. I said, time to pack up. I told Brother Jim Washington and my other Jim Cone and the other got to go. Toni Morrison called. I was at Princeton the next year. You know what I mean? That's Toni. That's Toni.
It was, people really don't appreciate, and I hope that more will be written about that time, because it was a it was the assembling of just a special moment of just powerhouse intellectuals to come of age as a young person intellectually in that company. Again, I didn't realize until many years later what a privilege that was, and how formative and incredible it was. And what was so impressive is I never felt as a student like any of those people saw me or other students as an inconvenience. That was never the experience, ever. I mean, when you think about people as busy and engaged as these folks were in the world, right? And I think about the amount of time that they gave us, you gave us, right? It really showed me what good mentoring looks like in a powerful way. And I'm grateful for that. Cornel, what is next for you? Are there, is there a project or projects on the horizon that you are able to talk about at present? What's happening next?
Well, I've been blessed to ask to give the Gifford lectures in Scotland. That's always meant much to me because so many of my own
heroes have given
of William James, of varieties of religious experience. Of course, John Dewey's The Quest for Certainty, and the great Alfred North Whitehead's Process of Reality, Niebuhr's Nature and Destiny of Man. There's so many towering figures who have been asked to give this. And in the new school really is a kind of stepping stone because I'm on my way. I'll deliver them 2024 if I can live long enough. And I'm going to have a good time. And I'm going to bring my tradition with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. These are the eyes through which I view the shaping of wrestling with truth and beauty and goodness and the holy and modernity and democracy and equality. The variety of voices, yes, but this is my voice in relation to those various voices. Cuts across color, class, civilization, national lines, sexual orientation, religions, and so on. But in the end, you got to lift your voice.
Absolutely.
But I tell you this, though, lifting your voice, though, brother, you were unique among us who not just fell in love with Baldwin, but became one of the great scholars who was putting Baldwin both on the map and in the center. Now, we've experienced a Baldwin revival in the last, 20, 25 years or so. But I remember you talking about Baldwin, even when we were talking about David Hume. And we all read Baldwin. We loved Baldwin. We appreciated Baldwin. Tony's best friend, Baldwin, Sister Gloria.
Yes.
But scholarly, intellectually, there wasn't a lot of people talk about Baldwin now.
There were not.
Now everybody talking about Baldwin. I said, what Dwight was out there, the voice in the wilderness for a while. And you started the Baldwin studies. What was that you had?
The James Baldwin Review.
That's right. Institutionalized the discourse.
It's 8th year now. Yep, and it's 8th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, dynamite.
Yeah. I want to end today on just something for our students. So tell me this: how do you think we as a community can spread and benefit from what you've always called radical love? How do we bring that back to a city right now that really needs it? How can we make each other disciples of love?
I think that you begin with the great New School legacy of what Alfred North Whitehead would call noble discontent. Early moments in his text, Adventures of Ideas. The noble discontent of a Socrates, of an Amos, of an Esther, of a Spinoza, of a Martin King. A whole host of voices come out of a variety of different civilizations, and connect that noble discontent to the nobility of Socratic exchange, of high quality intellectual conversation and inquiry that tends to tilt toward the vantage point of those who have been catching hell.
Yep.
On a variety of different levels, not just social, economic, and political, but of psychic, of existential, of wrestling with forms of catastrophe. And then have a commitment and a conviction that one is going to be faithful unto death to that quest for truth and goodness and beauty. So it becomes unstoppable spirit, an unconquerable spirit that always pursues intellectual dialogue in its quest for truth. A truth that's never, ever possessed, never attained, never fulfilled. It falls short. It falls short. Say with Becky. Try again, fail better.
As Baldwin says, begin again, right? I mean, that's
yes. Isn't that
what you have to do. It's like when you get to those moments.
That's right.
Where, where you think, we're really on the precipice of great change, a cataclysm. It's something that's paradigmatically different. And when we fall short, don't despair. We begin again. Again.
That's exactly. Goethe says, he or she who has never despaired has never lived.
Yeah.
Sondheim says, being alive, how do you make sure you are most intensely alive? Well, you're open to the catastrophe of success. You're open to the intimacy of failure. But catastrophe or failure neither has the last word as you make your own way forward. See, that is grandmama's wisdom.
That's right.
Oh, yes. And Beckett would accept it. Old brother Sam, our Irish brother, the Irish genius, he would accept it because it's part of his equipment to make his move from womb to tomb. What does it mean to be human? How you gonna keep on pushing? How you gonna persevere? How you gonna endure with integrity, with critical consciousness, orientation, and probably most importantly, as you noted, with a deep love that leads you to empty yourself and give of your gifts to others so that you can leave a little heaven behind before the worms get your body.
I think we're going to leave it there, brother. Right there.
This has been an unadulterated delight, my brother.
I so appreciate you. I really, really do. And you grace us by being here. And we hope for nothing but your continued good fortune and keep doing the great work you do.
Brother, I salute you. The new school is so blessed to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.